Libby's world is turned upside down as she confronts her father's manipulations and finds solace in Tom's steadfast support. Get ready to feel your heart race, darlings, as our heroine's world comes crashing down. Chapter 6. Illusions Shattered. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the Ainsworths' breakfast room, casting a warm glow over the polished mahogany table. Libby entered, finding her father already seated, hidden behind his newspaper.
"Good morning, Father,"
Libby said, taking her seat. Congressman Ainsworth lowered his paper, revealing a rare smile.
"Ah, Elizabeth, good morning. I trust you slept well."
Libby nodded, slightly taken aback by her father's cheerful demeanour.
"Yes, thank you."
"Splendid, splendid,"
he said, buttering a piece of toast.
"I had a chat with young Charles Houghton this morning. He was quite impressed with you, my dear. Said you had a delightful conversation about politics and current events."
Libby felt a small spark of hope.
"Yes, we did. It was refreshing to discuss such matters openly."
Her father chuckled.
"Well, I'm glad you got that out of your system. Charles is exactly the kind of man who can guide you towards more appropriate interests for a lady of your standing."
Libby's fork clattered against her plate.
"I beg your pardon."
"Come now, Elizabeth.
Congressman Ainsworth said, his tone patronising.
Surely you see that these suffragette notions are just a passing fancy. With a fine man like Charles by your side, you'll soon forget all about such silly ideas."
Libby felt her cheeks flush with anger.
"Silly ideas? Father, women's suffrage is not a passing fancy. It's a fundamental right that—"
"Enough!"
her father interrupted, his good mood evaporating.
"I've humoured this little rebellion of yours long enough. It's time you started behaving like the proper young lady you were raised to be. No more suffragette meetings, no more political discussions. You will focus on being a suitable wife for Charles Houghton."
Libby stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor.
"I will do no such thing,"
she said, her voice trembling with emotion.
"My beliefs are not some childish whim to be discarded at your convenience. And I certainly won't be moulded into someone's idea of a suitable wife."
With that, she stormed out of the room, leaving her father sputtering in indignation. Blinded by tears of frustration, Libby ran out to the gardens, seeking solace among the blooming roses and quiet pathways. She found herself at the old stone bench near the stables, her childhood hiding spot.
"Miss Elizabeth?"
Tom's gentle voice broke through her tumultuous thoughts. He approached cautiously, concern etched on his face.
"Is everything all right?"
Libby looked up, hastily wiping her tears.
"Oh, Tom, it's nothing,
Her voice broke, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. In an instant, Tom was beside her, propriety forgotten as he sat down and hesitantly put an arm around her shoulders.
There,
he soothed.
"Whatever it is, it can't be as bad as all that."
Libby found herself leaning into his warmth, drawing comfort from his steady presence.
"It's Father,"
she said quietly.
"He thinks that just because I had a pleasant conversation with Charles Houghton, I'll abandon everything I believe in. As if my convictions are nothing more than a passing fancy."
Tom's arm tightened around her.
"Anyone who thinks your beliefs are fleeting doesn't know you at all, Miss Elizabeth,"
he said firmly.
"You're the most principled, passionate person I know."
Libby looked up at him, their faces suddenly very close.
"You really think so?"
"I know so,"
Tom said softly, reaching up to gently brush a tear from her cheek. His touch lingered, sending a shiver down Libby's spine. For a moment, they sat there, lost in each other's eyes. Libby felt her heart racing, acutely aware of Tom's arm around her, the warmth of his body next to hers. Tom said, a hint of mischief creeping into his voice.
"If you really want to show your father how serious you are, you could always run off and join a travelling suffragette rally."
Libby couldn't help but laugh, the tension broken.
"Don't tempt me, Tom O'Brien. I just might do it."
Tom grinned, standing up and offering her his hand.
"Well, if you do, you'll need a getaway driver. I happen to know a fellow who's pretty handy with a motorcar."
Libby took his hand, allowing him to pull her to her feet. She didn't let go immediately, enjoying the feeling of her hand in his.
"I'll keep that in mind,"
she said with a smile. As they walked back towards the house, their hands brushed against each other, neither quite daring to take hold, but both relishing the brief contact. Libby felt her spirits lifting despite the confrontation with her father. With Tom by her side, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Little did they know, Congressman Ainsworth had witnessed their intimate moment from his study window, his face darkening with disapproval, and a new plan forming in his mind.